all of the magic of the piano happens. It's just right here. Everything else is just kind of part of the control system, part of interpreting all those things. Because the only magic in the spool box is holding the scroll, which has, obviously the specific holes cut out. And its only purpose is to run the scroll forward at the right tempo. That's the only thing this whole thing does. Control the tempo and tell what hold open to tell this system what to do. So this is your control center, basically.
So kind of the brains there. Mm-hmm. You have the pistons there, mm-hmm. and then you have the power supply there.
Yeah. So if we're talking in like terms of a car, of a gas engine, that is your gasoline over there on the table. This is your steering wheel, gas pedal, brake pedal, all that sort of stuff. This is your engine right there. If we can boil it down like that.
The thing that looks like an engine?
It's part of the control.
But is this considered signal?
It is, yeah. So that's because that's what the scroll is moving across. And so the scroll has, all of the different holes punched at different times because of the song, whatever's playing. And so then this, whatever hole is covered or uncovered, is covering or uncovering these holes down here, which is what's telling these pouches to puff like that, basically. So all this is doing is just creating a small condensed area for the scroll, because you don't want a scroll that's 5 feet wide or something like that. So it's taking it from a really condensed input, and then all the hoses on the back just flare out to this wide, basically, through the back. Mm-hmm. What's that? Yeah, scroll that big. That would be a little cumbersome. And storing them would be quite a trick.
That's from a different piano, right?
That's from the piano that you're working on.
Yeah, this is your piano right here.
This is all the
Okay.
So all of this unit right here in its entirety is the exact same thing, but just a different design as this thing right here in its entirety.
Right. So does that go on the top of the stack I have downstairs right now? Or is it somewhere different in the piano?
Somewhere. It's just on the front here.
It's like its own piece?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all of your things that you're working on mount directly to that.
Right, to all the...
Yeah, to all those Striker pneumatics.
And each of those holes here
connect to it.
correspond
Yeah.
to...
That's what I was thinking of. That's where it meets the gasket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Each of these holes there corresponds to a hole in the striker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so your strikers are attached to a full deck, right? The full piece of wood that all of those little pneumatics are glued to. That just screws straight to those in 3 rows. Yeah.
And there's a leather gasket in between that component and this component.
Mm-hmm.
That what goes around the perimeter, or does it go all the way in between all of these?
It just runs parallel through each row.
I see. I see. Okay.
Because you got the 3 decks, and then they just all miss. That's why there's room for this obtrusion between each layer. Because each deck is just one full piece that just runs down like that.
Okay.
And then the screws come from the inside and screw this thing down in. Kind of like circuit boards on a motherboard. You just stick them straight down in, clip them in, tighten them down. If you're into computers. But
So is this a part of the system that needs parts replaced a bunch?
It depends on the condition of the piano. This one looks like it's in really good shape, so it's a great one for you to start on. Because these leather pouches inside of here, I'll close it just a little bit, there we go. They're in such good shape right now. You can feel they've got elasticity when you try and pull, the edge just slightly. You can feel that it's got just a little bit of rubberness still in it. It's still supple. It's not petrified. Yeah. So this is in really good shape as far as condition goes. And if you do this long enough, you'll learn that this 100-year-old leather is is about in as good of shape as leather that was produced 10, 12 years ago. Because the new stuff has a new tanning process, and it's just not as good as the old process. This process is called veg tanning, which is much more organic. There's less chemical exposed to degrade the leather. The modern process is called chrome tanning, which is a bunch of other chemicals that are used to treat it. And the only reason they switched over was because chrome tanning was able to resist soot from the Industrial Revolution, because soot eats organic components alive because it's got so much sulfur content, it's acidic, it just kind of munches through everything. So the chrome tanning process fixed that. But since we're not in the Industrial Revolution anymore, you can prioritize like a veg tanning that's not going to be hurt, and it's going to be okay, versus a modern one that's got a bunch of holes in it, it's been eaten alive by the tanning process, etc. So most of the time, what I would recommend with things like this, where this leather is still in such good shape, there's a material that's a 100% silicone called RTV 3140, which is just a simple water-based silicone that's really thinned down, and you can rub it into the pores of the leather, and then you wipe it as clean as possible, because you only want the material in the pores, not making a thin coat over the top of the leather or anything. And that makes it almost 100% airtight, which is the best efficiency you can get in a player piano.
Yeah.
Because then, like I was saying, hundreds of inefficiencies. If each one of those 88 leather pouches is leaking, that's just that much more air that's being lost in the system, and that much harder you have to pump to run the piano, and blah, blah, blah. And then the other side, if you want to help me pull this open, Nacho, again, is the exact same thing. When I was showing you these leather pieces, these valves have a leather on the bottom side, so facing this side, and a leather on the top side. And that leather can degrade, but leather tends to break down at a somewhat uniform rate across styles, across animals. There is variance, of course, but the variance would only be like a difference of a couple of years of degradation. So if you can see that this leather is in really good shape, you can pretty much bet, and you have to do a visual inspection, that the leathers inside of these valves are also in good shape. But you have to, every time you work on these, go through with compressed air and make sure these valve seats are very clean and free of debris. Sorry, Nacho. On this side, they glue them in with hide glue, and over the years, the hide glue starts to crystallize and flake off like this. And these little flakes find their way into the valve seats.
And they want to keep the system open or closed.
And they want to freeze the valve from, preventing from doing its work. So 9 times out of 10 in this system, especially, if you have a note that's stuck or a note that won't play, odds are there is something stuck in this valve keeping it from operating correctly. Or there's a plug in the line, from the signal. Because also the paper starts to degrade over time from the scrolls, and since it's a suction system, it sucks all those fibers into the tubes, and sometimes a tube can get plugged. So very delicate orifices. Everything is very precise, like a pocket watch. And there's a lot of things, especially for a suction system that's pulling dust and debris into the system, that can happen to stop it from working properly. Clear as mud. Okay, any other questions? I don't remember what the first question is, but I hope I answered it.